If we let domestic abusers skip rehabilitation courses, then lives will continue to be lost. We're going to read into this piece from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an argument piece here from Byline Times with the headline that if we let domestic abusers skip their rehabilitation courses, then lives will continue to be lost. The domestic violence charity Refuge CEO Abigail Ampofo says that the government's decision to end the rehabilitation courses for some offenders is deeply troubling. Now, we know that the situation within our prisons and our rehabilitation, the court system, we know it's all really bad at the moment. We know that's the last 14 years, and I do have to keep going back to it. And it's important because I need to remind people that we did not have these problems before the Conservatives came to power back in 2010. There were issues, but they weren't nowhere near the levels that they are now. But we are in this situation where Labour are making difficult decisions. Now, I don't in any way, shape or form am going to justify what Labour are doing here. And any lives being lost as a direct result on the government is a tragedy, a national tragedy. I have said that during the winter crisis that if any pensioners died as a direct result of the winter fuel allowance, the blood is on the hands of the Labour government. I stand by those comments, even though they may seem very strong, because it was a political decision. This is also a political decision. And while I understand that some people will argue that Labour do not only have a certain amount of money, money should never be a factor when it comes to playing with people's lives. And we're talking about domestic abusers here. Now, you can argue all you want about other crimes, other things that people have done and what needs to be done about them. And I agree that all crimes need to be dealt with in their right way, shape or form. But the term here, rehabilitation, is so fundamental to everything. Because if rehabilitation doesn't work, or if you don't give it, you're not ever going to fix that person or fix the problem of that person. Because the whole point of when somebody goes to jail is they come back out with not the intention of wanting to go back in again. Not causing another crime, not causing someone else another harm. But if you take away that rehabilitation and all you're doing is bringing that person out and they end up back in the system again. Some may be smart enough to know not to break the law, but some will. And as Abigail has pointed out here, lives will be lost. People will be hurt. It's already a struggle out there for a lot of people right now. And this is not helping in any way, shape or form. So some domestic abuse offenders will no longer have to complete rehabilitation courses in an effort to revive pressure on probation services. However, when one woman is killed by an abusive partner or ex-partner every 5 days, the justice system cannot afford to sweep domestic abuse under the rug. Violence against women and girls, VAWG, is almost commonplace, with 1 in 4 women experiencing domestic abuse in their lifetime. However, this figure likely represents just the tip of the iceberg, as domestic abuse is severely underreported. There are lots of different sorts of crimes that are underreported, and yes, this is another one of them. So why, amid this horrifying endemic of male violence against women, are we even more resorted to being diverted away from keeping women safe? I'll give you an answer, not enough a reason why. Politics. Perception. Because it's not something that the media talks about, the government wants to paint a perception that things aren't perfect, but they're trying to make things perfect. They're thinking about the next election. They're thinking about how can they stay in power, rather than thinking how can we make people's lives better. That's what I think. it has been announced that, in an effort to reduce pressure on the overstretched probation service, rehabilitation courses for so-called low-risk offenders will be cancelled. These offenders will include some domestic abuse perpetrators. Now, it states there in brackets, there, low-risk offenders, so-called. Now, I think it's very clear to say they're not saying that, and this is really, really important context I want to state. They're not saying all of it. They're saying some. And I think that's a really important point to highlight here. I'm not justifying any of it, shape or form, but I'm very keen to stress what is being said here. They're not saying everything, they're saying some. Is it right? Hell no. But that context really does matter when we're reading into this, you guys. So while the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has confirmed that offenders will still receive supervision from a probation officer upon leaving prison, this concerning development is likely to be incredibly worrying for survivors of domestic abuse whose perpetrators are being released. They still have to go through the probation officer, but getting that decision wrong could lead to someone dying as a direct result. The government has pledged to halve VAWG within the next decade, but at present women and girls are still being failed by the very systems that are supposed to protect them. The recent report by Dame Nicole Jacobs, Shifting the Scales, Transforming the Critical Justice Response to Domestic Abuse, revealing women's confidence in the justice system is at an all-time low. Make no mistake, Refuge recognises the need to ease pressure on the probation service, but the justice system cannot simply cut corners at the expense of women's safety. True. This is the right way to put it. Moreover, we know that the current rehabilitation programs are not a perfect solution, but when it comes to preventing domestic abuse, concerns have been raised previously about the effectiveness of these courses, particularly when there is so much more that needs to be done to protect survivors. And yet, abandoning these programs altogether rather than evaluating current results and identifying areas of improvement sends an extremely concerning messaging with regards to the extent of which VAWG is being prioritised. This is not the first time the safety of domestic abuse survivors has been jeopardised by attempts to mitigate cracks in the system. Take the SDS-40 Early Release Scheme, for example. Launched last year to address overcrowding in prisons, it resulted in the number of domestic abuse perpetrators being freed. Yes, let's talk about that, guys. Let's remind ourselves about that. Because the Conservatives left the prison system so overwhelmed, it was absolutely insane. And they had to make insane decisions. They had to make difficult decisions. Was it right for them? Was it right for perpetrators to be released? Of course not early. But I understood at the time that the government had no choice. Because if the prison system is full, the whole justice system, the whole criminal system fails. Because there's nowhere to take prisoners once they've been held. Excuse me. And then you're in a crisis there. So I understand that. But it's the people who are released early. While a list of exemptions was put in place, it was far from comprehensive, and as it stands, it does not include all domestic abuse offenders, such as those charged with common assault. It also excludes offenders with a history of domestic abuse who were imprisoned for an unrelated offence. Additionally, some survivors were unaware that their perpetrators were being released, as the insufficient victims contact scheme only covers serious sexual or violent offenders where their offender receives an uncustodial sentence of 12 months or more. We are all too aware of the grave repercussions when the criminal justice system fails to recognise the real risk abuse posed to survivors' safety. Even through the released offenders will be monitored by the probation service. The murders of Zala Ali, Terry Harris, Colin Gate, Lacey Bernard and John Bernard highlight the fatal consequences of missed opportunities by the probation officers to properly assess and manage the risk of harm posed to women and their children. Now the notion that some domestic abuse offenders will receive even less supervision from probation officers due to the cancellation of rehabilitation courses is deeply troubling. At Refuge, we all knew too well that domestic abuse is never a low-risk crime. We provide life-saving support for thousands of women and children every year. But if their safety of these women is not prioritised within the justice system, lives will continue to be lost. We support the Justice Secretary's plans to recruit an additional 1,300 probation officers to improve the monitoring of perpetrators. This must be coupled with the mandatory high-quality training in domestic abuse and VAWG. The alarming lack of adequate training is not our only concern regarding the justice system management of VAWG. Dame Jacobs recently reported that found that 96% of police officers accused of abuse when allowed to keep their jobs, setting a chilling precedent of how serious a VAWG is treated. When police forces fail to root out domestic abusers within their own ranks, it is no wonder women have such little faith in the system's ability to keep them safe. Alongside a serious overhaul of justice system, we made it clear that increased funding for domestic abuse service is vital to tackling VAWG. Many services are at breaking point. After years of chronic underfunding, with the spring budget fast approaching, we urge the government to allocate ring-fenced multi-year funding for specialist organisations to ensure that many survivors as possible can access life-saving support. We cannot forget the domestic abuse happening every day. If you read this, one of your friends, family members or colleagues could be experiencing abuse. Refuge will never stop speaking out for our survivors, but we need our government, including the justice system, to make good on its pledge to halve VAWG. The impact of the domestic abuse cannot be undermined, ignored or trivialised. It's time for all of us to start listening to survivors and ensure no more lives are taken by violence. And that was by Abigail Ampofo, who is the interim CEO of Refuge, the largest specialist domestic abuse service provider in England. What do you want me to say? Do you think I'm happy about this? Do you think I'm happy that lives will be lost? No. But we know that there are root causes to a lot of this as well. Social media plays a part in this. The cost of living plays a part in this. There are fundamental issues that the government are not dealing with, that they need to deal with. Now, yes, it is true that not everything can be fixed with money. I understand that. And I do hope, I generally do, my hope is that I really do hope, regardless of what I think about the Labour government, is that they do get the grip on this and that the numbers do come down. Men who abuse women have no place in society. None at all. And my heart goes out to anyone who has suffered that abuse, in any way, shape or form. It's important that we remember that. And this kind of things are highlighted to remind us that, hey, just because you don't hear about it in the news doesn't mean it's not happening. The news only wants to report what you want to report. And I really hope people will come out of their way to watching this video and remind themselves that this happens and that we need to call it out. And that those who do it face the full wrath of the law and do go through the rehabilitation so that when they are released, they are no longer a threat to women and children. What do you guys make of this story? What do you make of the situation around the prison system, the rehabilitation courses? Do you understand the government's position? Do you sympathise at all with them, or do you agree there should be no cutting back whatsoever when it comes to this stuff? Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comment section below. If you found this informative or helpful to me in any way, hit that like button, share across social media, subscribe if you haven't already. Do check out the Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. And if you want to, hit the join button down below to join my membership for as little as 99p. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.